Welcome to episode 4 of the Business of Real Estate podcast with Lynn, Hoffmann, and Eric Johnson. Today's episode, it's about time. We are going to be talking all things time management and how to get the most out of your day. So stay with us. Okay, welcome to episode 4. It's about time. We're talking time management. And, one of the phrases I use, Lynn, is either you run the day or the day runs you. And we know we've both coached agents that just respond. They are total reacting to everything that happens, and they're just not ahead of the curve.
Right.
Would you agree?
I'm human too.
Yeah?
I can do the same thing. My day goes crazy. You come in, you got about an hour and a half, and you're okay, but then the day takes on a life of its own. And if you don't claw it back to the plan, quite frankly, won't happen. So you have to build in a little bit of that craziness for the day, but there's some great things here we're going to talk about to help people keep it on track, or at least be mindful about how that happens.
Yeah, and I think for me, when I look at time management, there's a number of things I think of. I came up with it was interesting, I came up with this system, and then I was interviewing coaches that coach me, and the guy said, "Oh, have you heard of this book? It was the 12-week year." And he goes, "It sounds very much like what you created." I go, "I hadn't heard of it, but yeah, it turns out it was the same thing." I focus on the quarter, not on the year, because it makes people take action sooner. I also look at the week as opposed to the day, because I think when we get so caught up that we have to have this done in the day, yes, we do want to have a to-do list for the day, but sometimes things are going to happen. Yeah. And so if I focus on the week and I said, look, I need to get in at least 3 hours of marketing time, I don't care where it happens, as long as I get that in and focus time on that. And I also look at, blocking off time, but also having that time, that free time for either to deal with the crap that comes up that we have to deal with, or it allows me to have free time, or I say, you know what, I didn't get to do all the marketing I wanted to do yesterday, so let me get some more done today. But it's been a question that everybody has been dealing with for so long, right? We both struggle with it, and like you said, we're human.
Yeah, and mine is I do a little bit different than you, but the net result is still the same. I like to lay out the year, and I know that sounds crazy, but coming from a corporate background where I came from as well, we had the year laid out for us. We were told when our big meetings were, we were told when our travel time was, when we had to be around. You've also got family commitments. You've got big things. You've got kids' birthdays. You've got anniversaries. Don't forget those. So I kind of like to lay out the year with the big stuff, and those things are non-negotiables. Yep. Then I do the plan the month. So I work around that. I schedule the week of things, but like you say, building in buffers, building in time for it to go squirrely. And then I prioritize the day. So we get to the same place, but I do just a little bit different. But again, building in time for things to go haywire, also building in appointments, building in recruit appointments, building in agent appointments that I don't necessarily have yet, but I've blocked a time where I can fill it so that I'm not being reactive, because boy, can this job make you all reactive. Everybody wants to be answered in 30 seconds, and your tendency is to go do that. So I have to block in time for those things and then fill those time slots.
Huge. And so for you, when you're looking at, when you're working with an agent, do you ever talk about the difference between working in your business versus on your business? Or do you use different phrases?
No. I use the same phrase. I use the phrase in your business and on your business. And the in the business, for me, I use the word that's your job. Mm-hmm. On your business, you've just became the CEO. So you've got to do both. And this is where my Captain Hook analogy comes in.
I love this. I love this. Tell us.
So this is. It took me a while to get this, but I finally got it. Your job, putting up the signs, maybe doing the paperwork, getting the FINTRA, doing all those things that have become your job. Your job ticks and clicks at you all day long. There's deadlines, there's time priorities, there's this. That clicks at you all day long. But the CEO part of your business, or you could call it your marketing part of your business, your lead gen part of your business, that part of your business is dead silent. Nobody's pushing you to do that. But that's the one thing, if you don't do it, you will have no job to work on in a few months because everything will be gone. Mm-hmm. So you have to differentiate the two things. There's in your business, on your business. And I think those are two critical spots that everybody needs to figure out.
For sure. And, for me, I've always said about that working in your business is where you're going out, you're taking the clients, you're doing those things that make you money. And I think, it is easy for people to go in and spend time doing some of these things we talked about in our last episode, where we talked about investing money into those assistants, right? To take some of that stuff away. Right. But there's definitely a time to work in the business, time to work on the business. And part of that comes down to how you block off your week or your day. And so I don't care. There's no one way to do this. But really, what you want to do is block off your time, see your week, and say, hey, I'm going to do marketing. I'm going to do my filming, my videos. Here's when I'm setting up appointments. I've helped coach agents where we bookend appointments and say, it's very easy to say, I'm sorry, I have an appointment at this time. Right. And I think the biggest thing that, not just realtors, by the way, okay? This is because before I came here, I was coaching a lot of different business owners, a lot of different types of businesses, is that people, man, I got to get that sale. And so what ends up happening is they will have some appointment, they'll have something come up, and they blow that away just to go show a house or do something. And I even had one realtor, Lynn, that said, my friends stopped calling me to go to parties and birthdays and such because they knew I always blew them off to go show a house.
Well, that's a real rookie mistake. So
huge.
First of all, and I watch that every year, every time we get a new person, that's a rookie mistake. So when you block the time, and the time could be for your kid's soccer game or dance class or whatever, but that time is called an appointment. And you don't break that appointment. You say to the client, I have Thursday at 2, or I could see you Wednesday at 1. And I'm going to tell you something. They'll always figure out a way. I mean, there are the odd occasion where literally the world's on fire for a deal. But for the most part, people are very flexible. You give them choices, they will pick one of the choices, and you will survive it. And you will have kept those other obligations and still been able to service this. And I'm going to use a restaurant analogy. If I could phone up a restaurant and get into it anytime, any way, anytime of whatever month, and get in on my first call, would I think that was a great restaurant? Maybe not. I'm used to having to make choices. I'm used to having to select dates. I think people like to work with busy people. When your schedule is a little bit busy, they think you're more successful. You're not, the value you have is not by being available 24/7. That is not what your value is to those people. And those are typically the people that will burn you out faster than anybody else. So absolutely critical to me that you book the time, you save that time, and then you work around those dates and appointments. One of the things that people do a lot is they spend a lot of time on their devices. They spend a lot of time surfing social media. They spend a lot of time running errands. They spend a lot of time in personal time. You should block in your personal time so you use it during that time period. So you still have time in your day to do things that actually matter. When I talk about an agent give me their priority for the week and the day, I'm not talking about walk the dog and get the laundry and pick up the groceries and stop and get the milk. No. I'm talking about what appointments you have, what buyers, what sellers, what marketing things are you working on. I'm talking about real things. And I'll talk about my Stephen Covey reference.
Yeah, well, I was
But,
just gonna say. I mean, for me, there's a couple of things here. One is the Big Rock story, that you were talking about, and the other thing comes down to is what's most important in your life. What it's the why. It's the when we look at our time management, and it's difficult because we all have the same number of hours in a day to work with, but some people make more of it than others. And so, let's talk about the big rocks. There's something else, but since you brought it up, let's talk about it.
Well, it's simple. If you watch Stephen Covey's very old video, but the principle's still the same. If you took a big container and you put water and sand and all this small stuff in first, there's no room left over to put literally big rocks in it, or even medium-sized rocks. It fills up. But if you put the big rocks in first, so those are the things for your year, the very important events that are not negotiable. You put those in first, and then you start filtering down smaller rocks and smaller stones, and you keep throwing in the pebbles, and then the sand, and then the water. That jar then becomes absolutely 100% packed with time, and you get 100% of your 24/7. A lot of people don't know how other agents do it, but what they are is they work with priority management, and they're very, very good at using their time, and they don't waste it. And unfortunately, in our business, there's a lot of things that can distract you. Drama, God knows, got enough of that. Lots of drama, lots of things going on, and people get distracted. So your mission is to stay on focus, on target, and use 100% of the time that you've been given to get these tasks done. And agents are always saying, well, I don't have time to do this with my kids. I'm burnt out. I don't have any family time. I don't have any balance of life. But guys, you are responsible for your balance of life. You can manage it if you learn to say no to some things and book it around your schedule.
And, I remember when I first got introduced to real estate, one of the agents I talked to, he'd been in the business 20-some years. He's never missed dinner with his family because he booked it as an appointment.
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly.
And so going to your point is that what's truly important to me? And so there's a few things I want to share during this episode, just some concepts that, as working as a business coach, and one of the big things I focused on at the beginning was time management. And I've come across so many different things. And so I want to share a couple of ideas with you guys, is that, we hear a lot of return on investment, but I want to talk about ROT, return on time. So if I'm putting time into something, what am I getting in return? So when I put in time with a friend and have a 15-minute, 30-minute coffee, am I building a relationship deeper? If I'm having dinner with my family, is that love growing, the respect growing from my children, that I've made time? I show them that they're important. So when I spend time on something, what am I getting in return? So let's look at the opposite is, what if I I went down the rabbit hole and spent 2 hours watching TikTok or Facebook Reels or something, and what did I get in return? Just a lot of stress and anxiety that I didn't get the stuff done that I needed to get done. That's not a great return.
No.
The other thing is, when we're talking about time blocking, is looking at your calendar. And so, I want to talk about marketing calendars, because you brought up laying out the year. And I think, I just had a mastermind on Friday. I'm sending out today. I give them a yearly marketing calendar where they plan out the themes and events.
Yes.
So like you said, I got to plan, if I'm doing
events.
Free ice skating, pumpkin giveaway, pie giveaway, Easter egg hunt, I don't care. I'm putting that, because all the big companies do it, right? Like I was surprised, they surprised me. Costco normally, mid-July, they put out snowsuits for kids.
Right.
It was near the beginning of July this year, but they typically, I can pretty much count on here's when they're going to come out with that.
Right.
We know when the stores are going to come out with Mother's Day stuff, Father's Day, Valentine. They have a schedule, and so you should too as a business owner. And then each month, you can then plan out specifically, here's the social media posts that are going out. Here's when the mail out is going out. I have a postcard, I have to plan out, if I'm going to mail this out on this day, I have to get it to me on this day. When do I send it to the printer, et cetera, et cetera. And so, from a marketing perspective, using those calendars are great. But the other part, just the general calendar. Lynn, I remember this gentleman, I was attended this thing called the Global Leadership Summit every year. It was done through these church networks, and there's this one gentleman running this mega church, and he wrote this book about simplicity, and he said, you know what? I realized that I need to clean out my entire calendar because I put in a lot of stuff that I didn't intend to do. You know, like you said, the big rocks, and I'd like to do this. And I love, I've stolen his line, and I'll gladly admit that I stole his line. But my calendar should reflect the type of person I want to be. And when I'm teaching a class on it here at RE/MAX Niagara or RE/MAX Escarpment, I'll say the calendar should reflect the type of person and the type of realtor that you want to be.
Right.
Where is my time going?
Right.
And if I look at that and I say everything has to fight to go on my calendar, it can't just willy-nilly go in. I got to say, is this a reasonable expectation of my time?
Right.
And, you know, and part of that when we look at the calendar is you and I had this discussion before we started was that first hour of the day. And I'm big on saying go into your CRM and look at what task did you set for yourself today.
Right.
Because that's where I get to say I run the day. I'm going to do the things that I set aside to do first, and then I start responding to the world.
Right.
But I need to get my stuff off the plate.
Right.
And you take a similar approach.
Yeah, I absolutely do. So
what does yours look like?
well, I'll open my computer, but I will not try to read emails at first until I get some of the big things that I need to get accomplished on. And actually, I encourage agents to do about at least an hour, but maybe 2 hours of outgoing phone calls every day. So whenever that is. And I think that it's been my experience that it's better to do those in the morning when your energy level is usually higher, you're usually fresher, and the day hasn't had quite a chance to get away with itself. But once you open up those emails, or once you see the joke that your friend sent you from the other office, or once you see, you know, something in the political world that takes you down that rabbit hole, you're done, you're gone, your focus is left. So I agree. And whether you get that from your CRM or whether you just get it from your to-do list on the day, my feeling is spend the first hour to 2 hours of your day actually working on your business. When you get that done, if you've got 10 calls to make, when you get the 10 calls done, in my world, you've won the day. You've got the most money generating, client building things done.
Yep.
Then if you want to goof off a bit and do some other stuff, God bless you. But you've got to get the big things done first. And that takes some discipline. I was talking to a recruit one day, and I kept saying, I'm available this time and this time. And he'd go, nope, can't do it. Available this time. Nope. I finally figured out. I said, what are you doing in the morning between 9 and 11? And he said, I'm making all my calls. I said, that's good. I like you already. Right? So he knew what his value was. He made his calls between 9 and 11 every day, like clockwork. And he wasn't going to let me get in that way. And that's what you have to do. So, yeah, we're in the same page. You just maybe come about it a little bit different.
Yeah.
But
yeah, it's getting those tasks done that you need to get done, right? Yeah. And I always say, and you mentioned earlier, hey, you know, there are times where there's the exception to the rule. The market may be a little different. We got to respond to something right away. But the key thing is that you set yourself up. And I think for the most part, most appointments are going to happen in the afternoons and evenings. So the morning is left for you to get a lot of stuff done. That's when I say to agents, book your personal appointments in the morning. Yeah. Like if you got to get your hair done or stuff, do it in the morning, get it over with, and then you can get into the busy part of the day. Start those calls. But you know, when we talk about return on time, keep in mind that if you decide to make calls in the morning and you're not getting a hold of anybody, right? So, I mean, we will have another episode talking about marketing and prospecting and talk about, you know, differences between, advantages between calling versus texting, because there's a lot of society now that responds more to text messages than phone calls, but maybe you have to do some of your calls in the evening. So, you know, that's another thing to keep in mind is that it goes back to, we always talk about tracking and measuring.
Right.
And so am I getting a lot of, if I'm making a lot of calls and I'm not getting people home, maybe I make some of those calls at night and I look at my database and go, some of these people are probably in the retired age, so I'll try calling them in the morning and the other people I'll call at night. But the other thing is, it's not just having the schedule, but sometimes it's important to go back to tracking, is tracking what you do each day. Because how many times do we hear nowadays, Whew, I was so busy, but I don't feel like I got anything done, right? And we laugh at that when they tell us this. We go, well, tell me what your day looked like. But a lot of people don't know. And so one of the things we embraced the Workman Success Systems last year, and part of his program was a daily success tracker. And it was all about prospecting. But the biggest piece to that for me was this one little piece on the side where you had the hours of the day and you tracked. And right now I have my mastermind group. That's what they're doing. For this week, they have to, they were asked to track what they do. So after, say from 8 to 9, once 9 o'clock hits, just write down, what did you do in that hour?
Yeah.
And, that is probably the most powerful thing you will ever do, is tracking what got done.
And what didn't get done.
Yeah. Well, and I had one agent who said, and I said it earlier, was you go down the rabbit hole of watching 2 hours of TikTok, and he did that.
Yep.
And and I go, I'll be honest. I go, no, be honest with yourself, because if you're not honest with yourself, though, would you agree, Lynn, is that if I'm not honest in that I'm wasting time,
right,
then I'll never be able to change my habits. Because really it comes down to the habits we create, and we got to make sure that we're putting time in for the right things.
Exactly.
And it's okay to do TikTok, Facebook, Instagram, Snapchat, whatever you're doing, Threads, the new one.
After.
Yeah. Or have a break, but have a timer and say, I'm allowed a 15-minute break.
Yep.
I'm eating lunch, let me look at it, but then I got to go back to work.
Absolutely.
Right?
And the other thing, there's an aversion to making outgoing phone calls. And I'm a bit old school about this. I have turned into the person that should have on my machine text for a faster result. But I still believe there's nothing like voice to voice. And calls. So I do believe in outgoing calls. If you can't get them on an outgoing call, then you text or do whatever, that group of people or your people, how they want to be communicated with. Absolutely. But really, you've got to make some outgoing calls. I had years ago somebody say to me, what did you do all day that would produce income? What tasks did you do today that made you money? That's a sobering thought, because watching TikTok is not one of them.
Exactly.
Right.
And marketing isn't so much making money.
Nope.
I mean, it can help, but
it's not making money.
It's amazing how much, like I said before, that line between prospecting and marketing.
Yeah.
A lot of people get so caught up in marketing, they forget to prospect. And they wonder why the phone's not ringing.
Right.
Because they haven't had conversations.
You need to be out there talking to people. So you, in this day and age, you don't have to be in an office to make the phone calls. You could be out walking your dog. You could be out visiting with people, playing tennis, all these different sports. A lot of agents know how to generate business wherever they are, but they're very willing to engage in a conversation about the market. And I do find that those that are more social, more willing to engage into contacting people, staying in touch with social events or walking the neighborhood with an intent in mind to talk about marketing, they do better than the ones that are just sitting at home waiting for the phone to ring, because it's not going to happen. You've got to generate something outgoing.
Big time. And, I know next episode we're going to be talking about databases, and I'll talk a little bit about sort of, setting some time aside for that. But, one of the things I encourage agents to do is, and it depends on how successful you are. So I say anywhere between 1 to 3 hours of prospecting, you should be looking at minimum. And so the more successful you are, and if you're doing a lot of business through referrals and you're naturally getting leads every day, like warm, good leads, then you're probably closer to an hour. But if you're a newer agent, you should be doing at least 3 hours of prospecting every day, because you got to start building up that consistency. And so when you understand that, up to 3 hours, and it can be broken down, say 2 90-minute segments. Right? 90 minutes in the early part of the day, 90 minutes in the latter part of the day. In between, I have time for showings. I have time for doing my marketing. I have time for, all these other things. But again, go back to looking at, how do I block off my week? And so you can go as low, short as 15-minute blocks. I would say no bigger than 30-minute blocks, because that's, to me, if you start doing everything for an hour, it's easy for that day. You're trying to fit too many things in, and there's not enough time to deal with the unexpected.
Yes,
and
you
that
have to leave
happens.
some time for that. And it does happen, and it will happen, especially the busier you get. When you have listings and you've got active listings, active buyers, you're going to have to set aside some time for those things. But here's the thing. When you're working with those people, you should also always be thinking on how to turn them and their friends and their family and their associates and anybody you come in contact with all day into a money-generating time segment of your day.
Yep.
That always has to be your main goal, is at some point talking to people about how you're going to do business for them or how you're going to help them. But you just have to organize this day a little better so it doesn't get away with you on other things. Block it in, have the time, block out your breaks, block out your dinner. You might go home for dinner from 5 to 7 every night. Block that out, family dinner. Then go out and finish your calls or finish your appointments. But again, if we don't block it, if we don't have it on a list, and if we don't have a to-do list or things that are urgent, and we all have different ones. We have things that, can take some time, and then we have things that are hair on fire. You got to do it now, but you need to have time to do it so you know that that's available for you. If you've got events coming up, you need to manage and plan for those events. How much time do they need? You've got 4 quarters in a year, and each one of them have a theme that makes a great event time, or to go by and visit people at their homes, take them a little gift, stop and talk to them about the market. But again, it's all about getting out there and engaging with people in this time management that you have available to yourself.
Yep. And you can schedule, for me, we can talk about a perfect week scheduler and scheduling the perfect week, but every week is going to be different.
Sure.
Because I may, family dinner may be moved to a different time on this day. It may be that I have, car service appointments, doctor, dentist appointments, et cetera, et cetera. So I do have to take time at the beginning of the week, say on a Sunday or whatever, to look over and say, what does the next week look like? Let me have an idea. One of the things we haven't talked about, we sort of danced around a little bit, but while it's important to have time in your business, spend time on your business, but it's also important to have time off and away from your business, because you need to recharge, you need to re-energize. And if you're listening to this podcast, ask yourself, every time I go on vacation, does things get a little hectic? So you will hear a lot of coaches encouraging you to book more vacations, and it may be a staycation.
Yeah.
But what I find is that, and I think what makes it work, Lynn, is that people I'm going away, so I got to get all this done. I got to get this marketing out. I got to get this done. I got to make those phone calls because I have to have them before I go. And they're so surprised when they make the phone calls that
what happens?
Business happens.
Business actually comes in. Happens all the time.
Book more vacations, people.
That's what I say to them, but I'm being facetious when I say it, because if they did that level of intensity on their work all that time, that would happen all that time, not just because they're trying to cram everything together so they can go away for a vacation. But again, that's a very hard one to do. I am very bad at this, but we really should try to have one day that you don't work, whatever day that is. It should be one day you don't work to recharge and stay involved with your family, so your kids know who you actually are when you walk through the door. That's a lot easier said than done, so I know that. But it's a goal, and it's certainly worth working on. Plan the vacations, plan all those things. Staycations used to be very difficult for me because if the phone was anywhere within a 5-foot radius of me, I was picking it up no matter what happened. You have to really learn to manage, and you do that by leaving the appropriate messages, the appropriate information where they can go to seek help, who they should call, whether it's urgent or not. I've seen me pick up a phone at 11 o'clock at night and somebody just wants to ask me what color I think they should paint their walls. I did not have to answer. They did not expect me to answer. But because I didn't have a voice message on that said, if it's not urgent, call me back tomorrow, I get the phone call. My bad. So again, train your clients and your people to when you're available and when you're not, when your phone goes off, what your parameters around answering that phone call are going to be. Give the folks direction, and you'll be very surprised that they will follow it. and it'll make your life a little bit simpler than answering questions and talking about drama.
Oh, for sure. And I think also having, you said it, having that perfect voicemail message.
Yes.
When saying that, you may be tied up in a meeting and that you will get back to them as soon as you're done. Because what I find is when I ask an agent, if you're in the middle, like I've been in sales meetings, you get into a sales meeting, you're not answering your phone.
Shouldn't be.
So if I can go 30 minutes, 60 minutes, or 90 minutes even, not answering the phone, but calling people right back, it shows that I don't need to answer that call. If I'm in the middle of an important task, because there's studies that show it can take anywhere from 12 to 20 some minutes to get focused back on the task you were in.
Oh, absolutely.
Because you got caught up in something else. So,
brain goes sideways.
You don't have to answer that call right away if you're in the middle of an important task.
As long as you have the correct messaging set up for you that says, I'm in a meeting, I will call you back within this. People are usually satisfied with that. They just want to get it off their plate and onto yours.
Yeah.
Right? That's all they want to do. They want to know they've been heard, and now they've done it. They've got it off their plate. Now you can call them back at your time
And
frame.
if it's an emergency, text me, and I can see whether
it's an emergency,
is it their emergency or is it a true emergency that I need to step away and respond.
Yeah.
Because something's blowing up, I need to deal with this.
So I mean, those are things that I am constantly trying to improve and work on all the time myself. So I know what and it's the same thing. When I get a call from one of my agents, they are my clients, and I want to respond immediately, as do they. So again, you have to start making it more systematized so that you know what you can do. You cannot pick up that phone every 30 seconds because it's ringing.
Yeah.
You can't. You'll lose your focus. And the other thing about that is when you're with your clients and your phone rings and you break away to go to somebody else, it's very disrespectful. I mean, you really need to be focused on the person that you're sitting with and actively listening to what they say. And to Eric's point, once you've taken that call, even if it's for a nanosecond, to just say, hey, I'll call you back, your brain is gone. And you're now not in the present moment with the client you're with. So very important. Good point.
Yeah. And, when I talk about goal setting, it's interesting. I can talk to somebody about setting up their databases in shambles and they want to set up their database. Or any other big project. And I'll talk about, big objectives, and we'll focus on 13 weeks, which is a quarter. And so I think, some people look and say, man, that's going to take a lot of time. I got to spend 2-3 days, getting my taxes done, everything. And, I go back to that tax thing, like when people I've seen agents that spend like 2 weeks gathering the receipts at tax time. And we joked about marketing and branding these shoe boxes with Remax on them to sell to our agents to collect those receipts. But if you just set aside 5 minutes a day, 15 minutes a week, whatever it is, it doesn't have to be long, but if I wrote down and tracked all my expenses, I got all my receipts, and look, I have a couple of past accounting clients that used virtual systems, and they, there's systems where it'll bring in everything you've spent and categorize it, and it's almost like your bookkeeping's done for you. But being able to track that on a regular basis means that I don't have to give up all this business come tax season. So being prepared for that and having that time, but it also goes back to when I look at those big objectives, I always say, okay, we have 13 weeks. Let's break down all the little steps we have to do. And let's say, okay, these steps get done week 1. These steps get done week 2. And I break it down into small, manageable chunks. So I don't care what it is you're working with, but you don't have to have that thing done in a day. That if you haven't had that marketing program set up in the past, you've gone 3, 4, 5 years without it, a couple of months is not going to make a big difference. So take time and break it down in small little steps and just say, look, I'm just, this week I only have to do these 2 or 3 steps amongst everything else that I have to do. And I tell you that by the end of that 3-month session, you'll have accomplished it, and then you can go and do the next one. Because I talk to people and a year later, they're still in the same boat because they tried to do it all at once.
Yeah.
So it goes back to managing your time, breaking things into manageable chunks. And I think, for me, the key phrase is return on time. If I'm spending time on something, is the return worth it? Right? So
I'm just going to throw another one into
Please.
there because we're all surprised that our taxes are due April the 30th. So it's going to happen. So Eric's right. Plan for it. Start. There's so many good programs out there now. There's no excuse for having a shoebox anymore because you can track receipts, and even your credit cards give you a printed out full list printout of what you've spent. So keep that up to date so you're not wasting. And you know it's got to get done. So don't waste your time and lose clients at the end when you're scrambling. The other one is your license renewal, folks. Do not do that 8 hours before you're about to lose your license and your livelihood, because it's not funny and it's ridiculous. You can go in and purchase that right after you've finished one, and you can just keep that education open for the whole time, whether it was 2 years or now it's going to go to a year. Keep it open. Do it a little bit at a time. Learn a little bit at a time. Take advantage of the fact that you can have it open and work on it in your leisure, not on the last time, because sure as shooting, when you're taking that and you're locked away for 8 hours or 10 hours trying to go through your courses, your phone's going to go nuts, and you're going to have clients and people looking for you and deals falling apart. And then it's, what do? Do I lose my license, or do I save this deal from falling apart? Yeah. So, planning is essential. Time management's essential. I don't think these are negotiable. I think these things need to get done. The sooner you start on it, the quicker it'll get done.
I agree. And the one thing is, you just mentioned it, and it turned back when we were talking about business planning, is the one thing I didn't mention in that episode, which is episode 2, by the way, is creating an education plan. It's important that you have that education plan, and that goes to not only maintaining your license with your, like, whether it's AREA or whatever here in Ontario or whatever, wherever you are, whatever your governing board is, but also looking at, hey, I want to become a better negotiator. I want to become a better salesperson. I want to become a better marketer. What seminars am I going to attend this year? So it's easy to get caught up, hey, doing class after class after class. But I say to agents, like, let's be mindful and say, this quarter, here's the 2 or 3 things I'm going to focus on, and that's what I should stick to. And maybe I can pick up something later on, but having an education plan to make sure that you do keep up. Like you said, in this business, it's constantly growing, it's changing. We got to keep up with new marketing methods. There's always new rules, new everything.
Yeah.
But having that plan, and so again, I hate to sound like a broken record, but plan, track and measure, and make the most of your day.
Yes.
Really.
Get 100% out of it.
What's your win the day?
Win the day.
So everybody, go out there, win the day, set up your plans, set up your schedules, make sure your calendar reflects the person and the realtor you want to be. And we will see you on our next episode of the Business of Real Estate podcast.